Just off the coast of Nagasaki sits a bizarre anomaly. Viewed from the water, this dense cluster of crumbling concrete structures and high defensive walls bears a striking resemblance to a massive gray battleship. This is Hashima Island, an abandoned settlement rusting away in the ocean. Despite being devoid of human life for decades, the island draws immense global attention. It's a premier destination for dark tourism, mapped entirely by Google Street View, so online explorers can digitally wander its post-apocalyptic alleyways. The Japanese government officially reopened Hashima to tourists in 2009. They immediately launched a campaign to designate these specific ruins as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, framing the island as a symbol of Japan's rapid industrialization in the late 1800s. But right on the verge of securing that prestigious title in 2015, the proposal hit a massive roadblock. Delegates from South Korea and China launched a highly public, organized opposition against Japan's request. Curious, this UNESCO application turned a crumbling industrial relic into a flashpoint for regional conflict, triggering a bitter diplomatic standoff between three of Asia's largest powers. The answer to why they care so much lies beneath the sanctions' tourist walkways. To understand what the Japanese government is actively hiding, we must look past the official narrative and physically excavate the hidden layers of Hashima's past. In the late 1800s, Japan executed a sweeping national transition, pivoting away from its agrarian roots to build a massive, modernized industrial economy. This rapid industrialization required staggering amounts of energy. When a massive vein of coal was discovered deep beneath the seabed of Hashima, the expanding Mitsubishi Corporation purchased the tiny, rugged outcrop to secure fuel for its growing fleet of steamships. To meet exploding demand, Mitsubishi built a bigger island. They dumped raw mining slag around Hashima's original rocky core, artificially pushing the landmass outward. Because this reclaimed land was fragile, engineers constructed thick concrete seawalls around the perimeter to protect their expanding infrastructure. Space inside those walls was desperately limited. Every inch not dedicated to the mining operation was packed with hyper-dense concrete living quarters for the workers, eventually cramming over 5,000 people onto the tiny rock and making Hashima the most densely populated place on Earth. By the 1930s, Hashima had taken on its distinct battleship silhouette. This shape mirrored Japan's aggressive military posture as the nation launched invasions into Manchuria and began a full-scale assault on China. The island's physical expansion perfectly tracked the empire's trajectory. As Japan seized control of Asian resources, Hashima became a primary furnace for the fuel required to maintain that control. To keep that machine running, Hashima needed to maintain peak coal production. But as Japanese men were drafted to fight overseas, a massive industrial labor vacuum opened up back home. The military solution was horrific. The state forcibly conscripted thousands of Korean civilians, including teenage boys, alongside Chinese prisoners of war, shipping them directly to the island to replace the missing workforce. For these conscripts arriving by boat, the massive concrete seawalls designed to keep typhoons out served a very different purpose. They looked exactly like prison walls, engineered to keep the forced laborers trapped inside. The reality awaiting them at the bottom of the mine was brutal. Workers were subjected to grueling 12-hour shifts in choking humidity and temperatures reaching 37 degrees Celsius. With space extremely limited underground, laborers were forced to physically crouch and crawl through pitch-black tunnels, constantly working under the lethal threat of sudden rock slides. Hundreds of those Korean and Chinese prisoners did not survive. According to historical accounts from survivors, the bodies of those who perished in the mines were taken to a neighboring island and cremated, their smoke visible from the Hashima complex. This underground nightmare is the hidden reality of Hashima. It is exactly the layer of history the Japanese government has actively refused to clearly memorialize, creating the modern diplomatic standoff over the island's legacy. After the war, Hashima briefly fueled Japan's economic recovery until the global shift toward petroleum finally rendered the coal mine obsolete. In 1974, Mitsubishi abruptly closed the facility, and the island was entirely abandoned. That brings us back to the 2015 UNESCO dispute. To break the deadlock, South Korea agreed to drop its opposition, but only after Japan officially promised to acknowledge the history of forced labor at the site. Japan secured the coveted UNESCO designation. Almost immediately, the government walked back its promise, releasing statements claiming that the Korean and Chinese victims were merely legally drafted to work, equating them to standard military recruits. If you look for proof of those forced laborers at the site today, you won't find it in the ruins. The only acknowledgement exists miles away at a government information center, buried on a small museum plaque in the form of a solitary, tiny QR code. Scanning that code reveals a final insult. It links to a video of a Japanese ambassador making a statement about the labor history, spoken entirely in English, with absolutely no Japanese subtitles provided for domestic tourists. Hashima's ruins show that history is physically built into our surroundings. By celebrating the industrial success while relegating the victims to a hidden QR code, the state curates a sanitized national identity, choosing which parts of the past are allowed to survive in the public consciousness.